Hello students, welcome back to another video. We are continuing in our marathon using the CSEC syllabus to study, and today we are going to look at economics. We are going to look at the subject economics. So those of you who are doing this subject, take out your textbook, take out your notebook, and let us go studying. All right, so we're going to begin with section 1, the nature of economics. And guys, if you can go through the syllabus to see how the paper is set up. So for the format of the examination, you have paper 1, which will be 1 hour and 15 minutes. It is consisted of 60 multiple choice items. The paper will sample proportionately all sections of the syllabus. Let me repeat this part, all sections of the syllabus. So do you see why it is important to study from the syllabus? Paper 2 is 2 hours and it is divided into 2 parts. Part 1 will consist of 4 compulsory structured questions. Part 2 will consist of 4 essay questions, of which candidates will be required to answer only 2. And these questions are from the syllabus. All right, guys. So we're going to begin with section 1, which is the nature of economics. We students should be able to define the term economics. Now we're going to look at economics as a social science. Your definition should include, not can, should include, according to the syllabus, the creation of wealth out of scarce resources, the production and distribution of goods and services, the behavior, interactions, and welfare of those involved in the process, economics as a trade-off. So the first thing we're going to do is to define economics. Now, economics is a social science that studies how individuals, businesses, governments, and societies make choices about how to use scarce resources to produce, distribute, and consume goods and services. Now, what are the key aspects of economics? And this is how we're going to look at economics as a social science. Now, economics, as we said before, studies human behavior and decisions in relation to resources, production, and consumption. Like other sciences, like other social sciences, economics uses theories, models and data to understand and predict how people interact in the economic world. Another key aspect of economics is the creation of wealth out of scarce resources. Now, in economics, when we talk about resources, we are looking at land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, which are limited. Now, economics explore how to maximize output. Now, output means wealth from these limited resources. How can we make money? How can we achieve wealth from the limited resources that we have to work with? The goal is to use resources efficiently to meet the needs and wants of society. Now, another aspect of economics is the production and distribution of goods and services. Now, students, do you remember what the term production means? What does the term production means? Very good. So production refers to creating goods and services using resources. And do you remember what are the resources that we are talking about? Land, what else? Capital, labor, and entrepreneurship. So production refers to creating goods and services using resources. Now, distribution involves deciding who gets what and how goods and services are shared across society. Economics analyze how goods move through markets. Economics analyze the pricing of goods and services. Supply, how many goods and services should be supplied. Economics analyzes what's the demand for a particular good or services. And it also decides what goods and services should be allocated and where. Now, what do we mean by economic as a social science? The behavior, interaction, and welfare of those involved in the process. Now, economics studies, as we said before, the choices of individuals. So once you see a question asking you about economics as a social science in terms of the behavior, interaction, and welfare of those involved in the process, this is how you're going to answer that question. So, as I said, economics studies the choices of individuals and groups. When we talk about individual and groups, we are referring to consumers, workers, firms, government. Now, it also examines interaction in markets, such as buying, selling, trading, and all the interactions that happens in market and competing. Now, it considers how these activities affect welfare, well-being, income, employment, and quality of life. All right, so we're going to look at economics as a trade. Now, what do you think a trade-off is? What do we mean by economics as a trade-off? Well, if your answer is a trade-off, a trade-off in economics means you are giving up one thing to gain another due to limited resources. Remember, we said that resources are limited. So you are giving up something to gain another due to limited resources because we can't have everything we want. We have to make choices, and every choice that we make has a cost. So, economic studies how individuals, businesses, and societies make decisions about which trade offs to make in order to satisfy their needs and wants with scarce or limited resources. Now, it is said that scarcity leads to choice and choice leads to trade off. So, when we talk about scarcity, as I said, we're talking about limited resources, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Because of scarcity, we must make choices. Every choice involves a trade-off. Choosing one thing means giving up something else. All right, example. Let's look at a student. A student chooses to study instead of going out. What's the trade-off there? The student will gain knowledge, but that student will have to give up leisure time. So you're giving up something to gain something else. Let's say the government builds a hospital instead of a sports stadium. What would be the trade-off? Improve health care, but have to give up the potential of tourism or recreation. Let's look at a worker who takes up a job closer to home, but for lower pay. What's the trade-off? You're saving on travel time, you're saving on costs, but you're earning less money. So you have to give up something in order to gain something because resources are limited. So if you get economics as a trade-off to explain, that's how you would do it. Now the syllabus is asking us to explain what is meant by an economy. what is meant by an economy, and we're going to also list the main sectors in an economy. All right, so let's go back down. So on the syllabus, it says an economy, you're supposed to define economy as a mechanism. In your definition, you should be talking about organization of resources for production of goods and services, and also satisfaction of society's needs and wants. Now, an economy is a system or mechanism through which a country or society organizes its resources. When we talk about resources, we are talking about land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So it's a country or society that organizes its resources to produce goods and services that satisfy the needs and wants of its people. Now, we have to look at economy as a mechanism. Now, the economy acts like a machine or a system that so it acts as a system that uses resources wisely. The economy acts as a system that uses resources wisely, meaning that it organizes land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs to produce goods and services. The economy makes decisions. It decides what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. The economy, as a mechanism of organization, distributes goods and services, ensuring that people and businesses receive the goods and services they need. Now, the economy as a mechanism also satisfies society's needs and wants. Needs are basic necessities like food, clothing, shelter, and healthcare. Wants are things we desire but can live without, like you don't need a phone, you want a phone. You don't need a vacation, you want a vacation. So a good economy works to produce enough goods and services to meet the needs of all its people. A good economy distributes goods and services fairly, ensuring that everyone, the needs and wants of everyone is met. Not some people, everyone. A good economy works to give people jobs, provide employment, and income so they can buy what they need and want. Example, a well functioning economy provides hospitals. A well functioning economy provides schools, supermarkets, so people can access healthcare, education, and food. So, in summary, an economy is a system that organizes resources to produce goods and services and aims to satisfy the needs and wants of society, whether it's farming, factories, or services like teaching or healthcare. The economy plays a vital role in helping people live better lives. Now we're going to look at the main sectors in an economy. Now the main sectors are the primary sector, the secondary sector, the tertiary sector. Now the primary sector, once you see primary sector, I want you to think about extraction of natural resources. Now this sector involves using natural resources directly from the earth, using the natural resources directly from the earth. So, do you know of any occupation that would be considered as primary sector because they get their extraction of natural resources from the earth? Can you think of any occupation? Well, if you're thinking about farming, you're very correct because growing crops, you have to harvest them from the earth. Another occupation that would fall under primary sector, fishing, mining, and forestry. So if you're asked to look at the sectors in an economy, you can talk about primary, sector, the extraction of natural resources from the earth. Example, farming, fishing, mining, and forestry. The second sector in an economy is a secondary sector, and this deals with manufacturing and industry. So the secondary sector takes the raw materials from the primary sector and process or manufacture them into a finished goods. For example, into finished goods. For example, let's look at food processing. You get the sugarcane from the primary sector. The farmers in the primary sector, they plant the sugarcane, they cut it down, and they send it to the factory, which is a secondary sector for food processing. And from sugarcane, what type of finished products can we get from sugarcane? You could get sugar, you could get molasses. So an example of manufacturing sector would be food processing. Another example that you could write for the secondary sector is clothing factories. So you get the cloth, you build clothes. Building construction, you get the raw materials, you're going to build houses and roads. All right, so those are examples of secondary sector. These with manufacturing, takes the raw material from the primary sector and process or manufactures them into finished goods. Tertiary sector deals with services. Now, this sector provides services instead of goods. It supports both the primary and the secondary sector and the general public. All right, for example, of services, teaching, healthcare, we're providing services. The doctors, the nurses, they provide services. When you go banking, the bank tellers, the managers, they are providing you with a service. Transportation, if you take the bus to school, the driver and the conductor, they would be providing you with a service. All right, so if you're asked about the main sectors in an economy, talk about the primary sector, the secondary sector, which deals with manufacturing, and the tertiary sector, which deals with providing services. Now, let us look at we're going to look at the concept of scarcity and choice. Now, I'm going to give you an opportunity, give you a few seconds to define or to write in your notebook what does the term scarcity and choice means. Are you finished? All right. Now, if this is your definition or if it's close to this, you are very correct. Now, scarcity means that resources, like what are the resources again? Land, labor, entrepreneurship, capitals, are they limited or unlimited? Resources are limited. So scarcity means that resources are limited, but people's wants and needs are unlimited. So we don't have enough resources to meet all the needs and wants of people because the resources are limited, they are scarce, but the needs and wants of people, they are unlimited. No country, whether rich or poor, has enough resources to produce everything everyone wants. Because of this, choices must be made. Now, what is choice? And I know you already write the definition in your notebook. Choice is the decision made about how to use limited resources. When we choose one thing, we often have to give up something else. And what do you call that? Trade-off. See, we looked at economics as a trade-off. So choice is a decision made about how to use limited resources. When we choose one thing, we often have to give up something else. This leads to the concept of opportunity cost. And as I said before, we are going to look at, it's the next thing we're going to look at, yes? We're going to look what opportunity cost and money cost is when you're finished looking at concepts of scarcity and choice. So when we have to give up one thing to gain something else, it leads to the concept of opportunity cost. Now, let's look at some examples of scarcity and choice. Say, and we're going to look at it from an individual level. Say you have $10. You can buy either a meal or a notebook, but you cannot buy both. You do not have enough money to get the meal and the notebook. Which one would you choose? You only have $10. Now, let's look at the different options and the advantages. Now, choosing the meal means giving up the notebook. Would you agree or not? Yes, you agree. So if you choose to buy the meal with your $10, you are giving up the notebook. Now, what would be scarcity in this situation? Limited money, which is a form of resource. Remember, we said scarcity and resources are limited. So the scarcity in this situation is that you have limited money. What would be the choice? Meal or notebook? What would be the opportunity cost? The thing you didn't choose, the notebook. So if you did not choose the notebook, that would have been the opportunity cost. And we're going to look at the definition for that word next. All right, let's look at scarcity and choice from a business level. So if you're writing about scarcity and choice in your exam, you have examples that you could use. Say a farmer has a piece of land and must decide whether to grow corn or sugarcane. What would be the scarcity in this scenario? Limited land, resource. The resource is always the scarcity. What would be the choice? He has to choose between corn or sugarcane. What would be the opportunity cost? The crop not grown. So if you do not grow any of the crop, that would be the opportunity cost. If you look at scarcity from the government level, a government has limited funds and must choose between building a hospital or a new road. Scarcity would be what? Limited public funds. Choice between a hospital or a road. What would be the opportunity cost? The project not being completed. You didn't choose any one of them. You didn't start anything. You didn't choose to build the road. You didn't choose to build the hospital. So that would be the opportunity cost. Now, why do you think that scarcity and choice are important in economics? Well, they help explain why we can't have everything. Scarcity and choice helps us to understand why, as humans, we cannot have everything. Scarcity and choice are important in economics because they show us, people show us, and also the country, that making decisions about what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Scarcity and choice in economics also form the foundation for economic thinking. So in summary, scarcity is a basic economic problem of having limited resources to meet unlimited wants. Because of scarcity, we must make choices, and every choice comes with an opportunity cost. All right, so we are down to opportunity cost and money cost, and we are just asked to define the terms. Now, opportunity cost refers to the value of the next best alternative that is foregone when a choice is made. It represents the benefit you give up when you choose one option over another. Example, and we have been using opportunity cost in the examples when we were looking at concept of scarcity and choice. So an example is a student has 3 hours. Say you have 4 hours. A student has 4 hours to either study for a test or work at a part-time job and earn $50. A student has 4 hours to either study for a test or work at a part-time job and earn $50. Now, if the student chooses to study, what would be the opportunity cost? The opportunity cost is the $50 they could have earned by working. So if you choose to study, it's like a loss. So you choose to study, so you lost $50 because you choose studying over working part-time to earn that $50. Now, money cost is the actual amount of money paid to obtain a good or service. Money cost is the actual amount of money that you'll pay to get a service or to buy a goods. All right? It is a financial expenditure involved in making a purchase or completing an activity. Example of money cost. If you buy a textbook for $100, then the money cost is, what would be the money cost? $100, because money cost is the actual amount of money that you pay to obtain a good or service. If a business spends $500 on raw materials, what would be the money cost? Very good. The money cost would be $500 because that is the actual money that was paid to obtain the goods. Now, what's the difference between opportunity cost and money cost? Now, as we said before, opportunity cost is the value of the next best alternative. Choosing to study instead of earning $30. Money cost is the actual money spent on goods or services. Paying $100 for a textbook. The $100 would be the money cost. All right, so I hope you understand that, guys. Now we're going to look at, I'm not sure if we can look at, I'm going to still summarize it, but if you have your textbook, you can go to the possibility curve in the textbook to see what we're talking about. So we're going to look at the illustration of production possibility curve. Now, commonly called PPF, production possibility curve, is a curve that shows the maximum combinations of two goods a country or economy can produce using all its resources efficiently. Now, the production possibility curve, or the production possibility frontier, as it is called sometimes, helps us to understand scarcity, limited resources. It helps us to understand opportunity costs. And you know what opportunity cost is already. It helps us to understand efficiency. The production possibility frontier or the possibility curve helps us to understand unemployment or inefficiency. It also helps us to understand economic growth. Now, if you are looking at your diagram, we don't have any diagram on the syllabus. We do not have any. But if you're in your textbook, you can just follow to what I'm explaining. Now, when we move from one point to another on the curve, we have to give up some of one goods to get more of the other. So when you move on the curve, you have to give up something to get more of the other. That trade-off, and remember what trade-off is? Giving up something to get more of the other, to benefit more from the other. Now, that trade-off represents the opportunity cost. Did you get that, guys? So when we move from one point to another on the possibility curve, we have to give up something to get more of the other. That trade-off represents the opportunity cost. And if you still do not remember what trade-off means, go back to the top of the video for trade-off and what is opportunity cost. Example, imagine an economy that produces only two goods, books and laptops. On the opportunity cost, you will have curve, on the opportunity curve, you will have point A, point B, point C. At point A, books produced, we have 100. At point A, laptops produced, we have 0. At point B, book produced, 90. At point B, laptops produce 10. At point C, books produce 75. At point C, laptop produce 20. Now, moving from point A to B, the economic gives up 10 books to gain 10 laptops. Moving point A, they had 100 books. Point B, 90 books. Point A, 0 laptops produced. Point B, 10 laptops produced. So moving from point A to B, the economy give up 10 books to gain 10 laptops. Because remember, at point A, we had 100 books and 0 laptops produced. Then we go to point B, we move to point B. There we produced less book. We had 90 books. However, we produced 10 laptops. So what happened between point A and B is that the economy gives up 10 books to gain 10 laptops. So the opportunity cost would be the 10 books per 10 laptops. So 1 book per laptop. All right. So as production shifts further, the opportunity cost usually increases because resources are not equally efficient in producing all goods. All right, guys. So as I said, to understand the possibility curve, I would have to show you a diagram, and there's no diagram on the syllabus. But I hope you understand the summary that I just give to you. Then you can now go back to your textbook and look at the production possibility curve to better understand it. All right. Now we're going to look at the influences on consumers in making economic choices. Individuals are constantly making economic decisions. We have to decide what to buy, how much to save, whether to work, whether to study, whether to build a house, whether to buy a car. We're constantly making economic decisions. Now, these decisions are influenced by several factors. So, guys, remember we're looking at the factors that influence consumers in making economic decisions. And the first factor that influences consumers in making economic decisions is budget slash income. Budget slash income. So the first influence we're going to look at is budget slash income. Now, how does income slash budget influences consumers in making economic decisions? First, the amount of money a person earns affects what they can afford. The amount of money a person earns affects what they can afford. Example, a person with a low income may choose to buy groceries at a discount store rather than a eat out. A person with a high income may choose to buy a GLE BMW car than what's the name of the car? Than a Honda, just to say. All right. So the amount of money a person earns affects what they can afford. Another factor that influences consumers in making economic decisions is prices of goods and services. I don't know about you, but for me, Whenever I choose to go shopping for goods and services, I am going to compare the prices before making any purchase. Now, if the price is high, there is a possibility that I may buy less of what I was going to buy, or I may not buy it at all, or I may switch to a substitute. Ex- Example, let's say if the gas prices increase, I may choose to decide to take the bus instead of driving. If I go to the grocery store to get chicken and the price is high, I may choose to buy chicken parts, which is cheaper. So the price of goods and services will influence consumers in making economic decisions. Another factor that we could look at that influences consumers in making economic decisions is needs and wants. Basic needs, example, food, shelter, are important over any want. Basic needs such as food, shelter, clothing, those are important over any else thing that I or you may want. Example, say a student may choose to spend money on textbooks rather than a concert ticket because the textbook is important. You may choose, your parents may choose to buy a house instead of buying a car. So your basic needs are very much important than any wants that you may have. So needs and wants can help decide how we make economic decisions. Another factor this is factor 4 that may influence consumers in making economic decision, and it's advertisement and marketing. I don't know if you have ever seen some goods being advertised and you're like, yo, I need that. I want that based on how the product is being marketed. Now, advertisement can influence preferences and choices by making products more appealing. Example, say a teenager sees a new phone advertised on social media. There's a high possibility that he's going to choose to buy the new phone if he can afford it instead of saving. So he was planning on saving his money, but because he saw this new iPhone 16 Pro Max being advertised on social media, and the advertisement is so appealing, he decides that, hey, I'm not going to save this money anymore. I'm going to get that iPhone 16 Pro Max. All right, so advertisement can influence consumers in making economic decisions. And I can give you one more. Let's look at one more. Because guys, there are so many influences that you could write about. So I'm going to give you one more, which is the fifth influence: peer pressure, social influence. Now, friends, family, cultural norms can influence what you decide to buy or do. Say, for example, a person might buy a fashionable shoes to fit in with their peer group. Another example, let me use the same shoes. Students at school, they are wearing Nike or they are wearing the new Jordan to school. You are feeling so pressured that to fit in that you decided to go home to tell your parents, oh, I need a new Jordan, or oh, I need a new Nike shoes. This is what everyone is wearing at school. So peer pressure, friends or family can influence you to make economic decisions. All right, so we're going to stop there. So those were 5 influences that can impact consumers' economic decisions. Now we're going to look at influences on producers in making economic decisions. Firms, organizations, producers, businesses, they have to make decisions about what to produce, how to produce it, how much to charge, and where to sell. These decisions are influenced by various internal and external factors. Now we're going to look at the first factor that influences producers in making economic decisions, and that is cost of production. How does cost of production influences producers in making economic decisions? Now, what do I mean by cost of production? Do you know what cost of production means? Very good. Cost of production are the expenses that producers must pay to create goods or services. Now, what are some of these expenses that producers have to pay in order to create goods and services for consumers? Well, we are going to put this into different categories. These include fixed costs. Example, they have to pay for rent every month, and they have to pay salaries every month or every 2 weeks, whenever they choose to pay the salaries to employees. So those are fixed costs that they have to pay every month. Now we have the variable costs. Those includes raw materials and electricity. The total, average, and marginal costs. Now, why does cost matter to producers? Why does cost matters to producers? Now, cost of production strongly influences the economic decisions that producers make because they have to decide how much to produce, what price to charge, what resources or methods to use, whether to continue or stop production. Now, the key economic decisions affected by costs are what to produce. Producers choose goods, services with lower costs and higher profits. They have to decide how much to produce. Higher costs may lead to producing less to avoid losses. How to produce. Producers may switch to cheaper or more efficient production methods. They have to decide whether to expand their production or shut down. So high or rising costs may prevent expansion or force closure. So let's look at an example of cost production. So say there's a small bakery and they have to decide whether to increase bread production. If the flour price rises, what will happen to the total cost of bread? Definitely is going to increase. If producing more bread means higher electricity and labor costs, the marginal cost would do what? The marginal cost would rise. And I can hear one of my students asking me, Miss, what does marginal cost mean? Marginal cost is the additional cost a producer takes on when producing one more unit of a goods or service. Example, so a factory produces 100 chairs at a total cost of $1,000. If producing 101 chair, so you plan to produce 100 chair at $1,000. Now if something happens, say something happens and you have to produce 101 chairs instead. This will increase the total cost to $1,010. So the marginal cost of the 101 chair is $1,010 minus $1,000. So you take on an extra $10, on your production costs. All right, so that is what marginal cost means. So the first influence on producers in making economic decisions is cost of production. Next, we're going to look at demand for the product. Demand for the product. Now we have to define what is demand. Demand refers to the desire and ability of consumers to buy a product at a given price over a certain period. When demand is high, what happens? That means more people want the goods to buy. What happens when demand is high? Producers are more likely to increase production or raise the prices because their product is in demand. People want the product. When demand is low, what happens? Producers may cut back on production, so they'll produce less, or they may lower the prices so that more people can buy it. They don't want the goods or this to spoil because a lot of people is not buying it. A lot of people are not buying it. Now, how does demand influences producers' decisions? Now, what to produce? Producers, they have to make decision on what to produce. Usually, producers focus on goods or services that are in high demand. Because once your good is in high demand, most definitely you'll have to produce more, and there's a possibility that you're going to raise the price for the goods. Producers have to make decisions on how much to produce. So high demand leads to increased output to maximize profits. They have to make decision on the setting price. Strong demand can allow for higher prices, as we have been saying. Producers, they have to make decisions based on demand about investment choices. So producers may invest more in products with rising demand. Example, let's see if I can find an example. Example, say a company that makes fruit juices. Notice that there's a rise in demand for natural sugar-free juice. The producer decides to create more sugar-free options. They increase production to meet the growing demand. They may raise prices slightly if consumers are willing to pay more. They may even invest in more equipment to expand juice production. So this shows how demand directly shapes producers' strategies and investment, and also influences producers in making economic decisions. Another factor that we could think about, and I think this is going to be my last one. Now we're going to look at how prices of goods and services influences producers in making economic decisions. Why do you think that prices or the price of goods and services matters to producers? Why does that matter? Well, the price of goods and services is one of the most important signals in an economy. It helps producers decide what to produce, how much to produce, and how to allocate resources. Now, producers are motivated by profit, and price affects their potential revenue. Now, when prices are high, producers earn more revenue per unit sold. They are more likely to increase production. They are more likely to invest more resources into that product. They are more likely to enter the market if they weren't producing it before. Example, if the price of mango rises, farmers may plant more mango trees. They may reduce production of other crops so that they can focus on planting more mangoes. They may hire more workers to help in the harvesting of mangoes. Now, when prices are low, revenue per unit falls, reducing potential profit. So producers may cut production because the prices are low. The goods they are not selling, at the price that they wanted the goods to be sold for, or they are not making enough profit. So they may decide to cut production. They may switch to a more profitable product. So you used to sell sugar juices, that's not working out. You choose to start selling mango juices. All right. So when prices are low, you may switch to more profitable products. Or producers may delay or cancel the investment. They might just shut down the business and say, oh, we're not making any profit, so this is not working out. All right. Example, if the price of tomatoes drop too low, a farmer might decide to plant fewer tomatoes next season or choose to grow peppers instead. All right. So another factor that influences producers in making economic choices is, what was it? The price of goods and services. And guys, there are many other influences that you can write about, but for the sake of the video, I have decided to do three. I might just give you the others and you just decide to do your research on them. So you could look at competition, you could look at government regulations and taxes, you could look at availability of resources, you could also look on technology as influences on producers in making economic decisions. All right, so we are going down nicely. The next thing we're going to look at on the syllabus is, and we're going to section 2. So if you get any question from section 2, you should be able to get your full marks for those questions. We're going to look at production, economic resources, and resource allocation. Specific objectives students should be able to define production. So we're going to look at the first three objectives, then we answer the question. So students should be able to define production, distinguish between production and productivity, define the term factors of production. Now let's go down to the content. And it says definition of production. So the first thing we're going to do is to define production. What do you think production is? What do you think production is? All right, guys, I know you have your answer already. So production is the process of combining resources. What are the resources that we talk about in economics again? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So production is a process of combining resources and to create goods and services that satisfy human needs and wants. Example, say a bakery, we're going to go back to the bakery. A bakery uses flour, sugar, oven, and bakers to produce bread. A tailor might use cloth, thread, labor to produce clothing. So all of those would be resources that are needed to create goods and services to satisfy human needs and wants. What do we mean by productivity? Well, productivity refers to the efficiency of production, how much output is produced per unit of input, such as per worker, per hour, or per machine. Example, and to calculate productivity, it's productivity equal output over input. Now, if one factory worker produces, say, 10 shirts per day, and another produces 20 shirts per day, who do you think has a higher productivity? Very good. The one that produces 20 shirts per day would have a higher productivity. Now, what would be the difference, putting the two terms together? What would be the difference in terms of, let's look at the meaning. Just summarize. Let's look at the meaning. So we said that production has to do with total output of goods and services. Productivity has to do with the efficiency of producing output from inputs. If we look at the quantity produced with the 10 shirts and the 20 shirts, productivity, so production focuses on quantity produced, how much is produced. Productivity focuses on the output per unit of input. Production, say a farmer grows 1,000 watermelons, productivity would be a worker needs to harvest 100 melons per day. Production focuses on to produce goods and services. Productivity deals with maximizing efficiency in using resources. So production is just about making things. Productivity is about how efficiently those things are made. All right, so that was very easy. All right, guys, so now we're going to look at the factors of production. So if you get any question asking you about the factors of production, we're going to look at resources, both human and non-human resources. We're going to look at what is required to produce goods. Now, when we talk about the factors of production, these are the resources that are used to produce goods and services. These include both human resources like labor and entrepreneurship. You need humans to do those. And non-human resources like land and capital. The four factors of production are, what are they, guys? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Now we're going to look at the four factors of production individually. Let's start off with land. Land is, would you consider land to be a non-human resource or a human resource, or both? Very good. Land is a non-human resource. All natural resources used in production. Example, soil, land, water, land, minerals, land, forest, land, sunshine, land, the ocean, land. So land are all natural resources that are used in production. Example, a farmer might use land to do what? To grow crops. The government might use land to do what in the tourism industry? Build hotels, parks, etc. All right? So the farmer would use the land for planting crops like corn or sugarcane. The soil and water, those would be the natural resources from the land, and the human input would be the farmer and workers who cultivate and harvest the crops. So while land provides the physical space and raw materials, human effort is needed to make production possible. So the first factor of production, land, in summary, land is a non-human factor that includes all natural inputs. It is essential for producing goods, especially in farming, mining, forestry, and fishing. And again, I'll give you an example to close it off. A coffee plantation uses land to grow beans with labor and capital to harvest and process them. All right. So the next factor of production that we're going to look at is, let's look at capital. So another factor of production is capital. Now, in economics, capital refers to the man-made resources used to produce goods and services. These include tools, machines, equipment, and buildings. Capital, it must be established. Let's establish this from now. Capital is different from money. In economics, we're talking about capital as equipment or tools that are used in the production process, not, and I repeat, capital does not refer to the money that is used to buy them. Now we're going to look at capital as a resource. It is a non-human resource. Examples of capital. We established some already, but let's just go over them. Machines, tools, factories, vehicles, technology. Example, also we could talk about a sewing machine in a clothing factory. That would be an example of capital. Now we have human related capital, often called human capital, and these are the skills, training, and experiences of workers that makes them more productive. So at no point do we talk about capital as money? Capital as a resource can be non-human. Example, machines, tools, factories, vehicles, technology, or it can be human-related capital, which involves the skills, training, experience of workers that make them more productive. Now, why is capital important? As the factor of production, it increases efficiency and output, it saves time and labor, and it helps produce goods faster and in larger quantities. So, just quick summary of capital as one of the factor of production. Capital is a non-human, man-made resource used in production. You also have human capital, which refers to the knowledge and skills of workers. Capital helps to improve productivity and efficiency. And I'm going to close off with an example. So, a computer in an office, a crane at construction site, or a chef knife in a restaurant would all be examples of capital. Our third factor of production is labor. Now, labor refers to the human effort, both physical and mental, used in the production of goods and services. It is a human resource, meaning it involves people's time, skills, and energy. Unlike land and capital, labor is not a material thing. It is a work done by people to help create products or deliver services. Labor includes skilled workers, example teachers, doctors, etc. Unskilled workers, cleaners, construction laborers, etc. Mental labor, like the planners, the designers, the accountants, physical labor, the farmers, the factory workers, the carpenters. These human resources are essential for turning raw materials, example land and tools, example capital, into finished products. All right. Now we're going to look at our final factor of production, which is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship as a factor of production. Now, what is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is the human skill and willingness to take risks in organizing and managing the other three factors of production: land, labor, and capital, to produce goods and services. So the entrepreneur is often seen as the leader or innovator in the production process. Now let's look at entrepreneurship explained as a human resource. Now, the entrepreneur is a person who plans, makes decisions, take risks, and manage the business. Example, a baker, a bakery owner. Let's look at a bakery owner, and you must be saying everything is about the bakery. A bakery owner who hires staff would rent a shop and decides what kind of bread to sell. So in this example, you would see the entrepreneur making decisions, taking risks, and managing the business. Now we're going to look at entrepreneurship as a non-human resource, and these are just things that are used by the entrepreneur. The land for space or raw materials, capital, they would use tools, equipment, etc. Labor, workers hired to help with production. So the functions of an entrepreneur combines resources, make business decisions, take financial risks, innovate new products or production methods, supervises operation. All right, so that's it for capital. So the four factors of production are, that's it for entrepreneurship, I'm sorry. So the four factors of production are land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. Now, we're going to look at the types of economic resources as factors of production. The types of economic resources as factors of production. And I think this objective basically relates to number three where we define the term. Oh, we were just supposed to define the term factors of production. However, we did identify the economic resources. Oh, that are referred to as factors of production. So we would have done number four already, where we look at the land, the capital, the entrepreneurship, and the labor. But we can still look at it, but learning is never too much. So let's go. So if we should define the term factors of production, it would be the economic resources that are essential to produce goods and services. Now, we know the four factors of production already. Just a quick summary because we did look at them already. Just a quick summary: the land, natural resource that's provided by nature, used for farming, mining, fishing, building. Labor, the human effort, physical or mental, used in production, used for operating machines, providing services. Manual and skill tasks. Capital, all man-made tools and equipment used to produce goods and services, used for making production faster and more efficient. Entrepreneurship is the human skill of organizing and managing the other three resources and taking business risks. All right, because we already explained them already. So we are actually at number five. State the rewards of the factors of production. State the rewards of the factors of production. And the rewards of the factors of production are that you should be writing about rent, wages and salaries, interest, and profit. Alright guys, so please remember to like, share, leave a comment on my video guys, and watch the ads in order to support my small channel. Okay guys? Alright, so the rewards of the factors of production. Now each factor of production, and we know what they are: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, receives a reward. That's a payment or return for its contribution to the production process. These rewards are, and we are going according to the syllabus: A, rent, land or rent. Definition: rent is the payment made for the use of land or other natural resources. It is the reward received by the owner of land or any natural resource when it is used in the production of goods and services. So land includes, as we all know, all the natural resources: soil, rivers, forests, and minerals. Now, when someone uses land that belongs to another person or the government, they usually pay rent for its use. Example, a farmer would rent a piece of land to plant corn. At the end of each month or season, the farmer pays rent to the landowner for using the land. This rent is the reward the landowner earns from allowing the land to be used in production. So rent is the reward for the use of the land. It is a fixed payment. It can be paid monthly, yearly, daily, and rent can also apply to the use of natural resources like mines, oil wells, or rivers. All right, so now we're going to look at wages and salaries as reward for factors of production. Wages and salaries are the payments made to workers, labor, for their mental or physical effort used in the production of goods and services. So wages are usually paid hourly, daily, or weekly, and may vary depending on hours work. Salaries are fixed regular payment, often paid monthly regardless of hours work. Now, labor includes all human effort, skilled or unskilled, mental or physical, used to produce goods and services. So once you work, once you use your energy, your skill, your talent, your ability, your time, you will receive salary or wages for your work. All right, so that's the reward. Now we're going to look at interest as a reward, a factor of production. Now, interest is the payment made for the use of capital. Do you remember what capital is as a factor of production? That is for using money, tools, or equipment provided by someone else. It is the reward earned by those who supply capital to a business or production process. Capital refers to, and let me remind you what capital refers to in factors of production, man-made resources such as used to produce goods and services, such as machine, buildings, tools, etc. People or businesses that provides capital expect to earn interest in return. Example, a business borrows $10,000 from a bank to buy machines. The bank charges 5% interest per year. At the end of the year, the business pays the bank $10,000 plus $500 interest. The $500 interest is the reward the bank earns for lending its capital to buy the machines. So the key points to remember is that interest is the reward for capital. You buy a machine, you borrow the money from the bank, as the example says, to buy a machine. The bank is expected to make interest on that money that was loaned to you to get the machine. It is earned by lenders or investors who provides money or equipment. It is paid by borrowers who use the capital to produce goods or services. Now, profit is the reward earned by an entrepreneur for taking risks, organizing the other factors of production, and running a business. It is what remains after all business costs are paid. Now, the entrepreneur is the decision maker who brings land, labor, and capital together to produce goods or services. They take financial risk there because there is no guarantee of profit when you're operating a business. If the business does well, the entrepreneur earns profit. If it fails, they may lose money. Example, if an entrepreneur opens a small shop and say she earns $10,000 in sales, that would be a revenue or a profit. She pays $7,000 for the ingredients, the rent, the wages, and electricity. That would be costs. So our profit would be the 10,000, so the revenue would be $10,000 in sale, minus $7,000, which is the amount you have to pay out for rent, wage, electricity, etc. So our profit would be $3,000. So this $3,000 is a reward for taking the risk, managing operations, and successfully running the business. All right, so if they ask about reward of factors of production, you definitely should be able to explain that using rent, wages and salaries, interest, and profit. Next, we're going to look at description of the factors of production. So we're going to go a little bit more deeper into the factors of production. We're going to look at land, the first factor of production. We are going to look at the definition of land, characteristics, types of land, and importance of land, also productivity. All right, guys? All right, so we're going to look at land as a factor of production. The first thing the syllabus says we need to do is to define land. Now, land refers to all natural resources that are used to produce goods and services. This includes Earth's surface as well as resources found above, on, or beneath the earth. So land is not just soil, it includes water, minerals, forest, air, and sunlight, all naturally occurring resources. Now, what are the characteristics of land? Land is natural, it's not man-made. It is provided freely by nature. Land is fixed in supply, meaning it cannot be increased by human effort. It is immobile. Land cannot be moved from one place to another. Another characteristics of land is that land varies in quality. Some lands they are fertile and productive, while some land are barren or less useful. Final characteristics of land, it's a subject to diminishing returns, meaning that overuse of land without proper care can reduce its productivity. Now we're going to look at types of lands. We have agricultural land, which is farmland for growing crops. We have mineral land, which are areas with oil, gold, or bauxite. So if you're living a mining area, that would be a mineral land, right? We have forested land, and these are lands covered with trees for timber use. We have marine resources like rivers, lake, and oceans for fishing. Another type of land is building land, which are space for housing, factories, and roads. Now, what are the importance of land in production? Land provides the space and raw materials needed for production. Land is essential for farming, mining, forestry, construction, and tourism. The location of land can affect costs, transport, and market access. Now we're going to look at the productivity of land. Depending on factors like fertility and quality of the soil, climate and rainfall, technology and farming methods, investment in irrigation, fertilizers, or drainage, productivity can increase with good management and sustainable use. Example of land use: a banana plantation in St. Lucia, a bauxite mine in Jamaica, a beach in the Bahamas used for tourism, a forest in Guyana used for timber, a river in Suriname used for fishing, and hydroelectric power. Those are all examples of productivity um, of land. So we did look at the definition of land, the characteristics of land, the types of land, the importance of land, and productivity of land. Now we're going to go to our other factor of production, which is labor, and we're going to look at definition, characteristic, functions, division of labor, specialization of labor, productivity, efficiency, and supply. All right, guys. So if you need to take a break, pause this video, guys. Take a break because I want to go through this section before closing off part one of this video. So take a break if you want, if you wish to. Let the ads run on the video, then come back and continue with your study. All right, so let's continue with labor. Now, when we talk about labor as a factor of production, it refers to all human effort, physical and mental, used in the production of goods and services. It is the human resource in the economy. So, labor, in simple terms, includes everyone from farm workers, factory workers, to teachers, doctors, software developers, etc. Now let us look at the characteristics of labor. Human. They are the ones who provide the service and it's provided only by people. Not land. Labor is perishable, meaning that it cannot be stored. If not used, it is lost. Example, hours not work. Mobile. Labor is mobile. Labor cannot move from place to place or job to job. Labor is dependent. That means labor requires land and capital to be productive because it doesn't make any sense. You have your talent and your abilities. If you don't have a land for factories and you don't have the capital, the machines, etc., to make production efficient, you will not be able to use your labor. All right. Functions of labor: operates machines and tools. People, please remember when we're talking about labor, we're talking about people, human effort, people using their physical and mental um, capacity to use in the production of goods and services. So please remember we're talking about people. All right, so functions of labor: operates machine and tools. People provides services. Labor transforms raw materials into finished goods. Labor organizes production and management activities. Labor creates ideas and innovation. All right. Now we're going to look at the division of labor. This is when production is broken down into separate tasks and each worker specializes in one task. Example, in a bakery, one worker mixes the dough, another bakes, another packages the bread. This increases speed, so when labor is divided, it increases speed, efficiency, and output. Specialization of labor. This is when individuals focus on a specific, excuse me. This is when individuals focus on a specific type of work they are best at, rather than doing multiple tasks. Example, a surgeon specializes in surgery would prefer to do surgery, not general medicine, because surgery will be their specialization. A tailor specializes in making suits. He will not want to make dresses because that's not his specialization. So this leads to higher quality and greater productivity. Now, when we look at productivity of labor, productivity equal output per worker over time. Productivity depends on the skills and training of the people working with you, motivation and working conditions, tools and technology available, management and organization. Example, a trained farmer using modern tools would harvest more than an untrained one using simple tools. All right. When we talk about efficiency of labor, this measures how effectively labor uses resources. So high efficiency, you have less waste, lower costs, and higher profits. So there are many ways that businesses can earn efficiency or improve their efficiency. This could include training their workers, using better tools and machines, or providing good working conditions. Now, supply of labor refers to the number of people willing and able to work at different wages. This is influenced by the amount of salary or wages that businesses are being offered. So depending on how much you are being paid, that would increase the number of people who are willing and able to work for you, depending on the working conditions, depending on education and training, depending on population size and age distribution. Supply of labor also depends on social and cultural attitudes. Now let's look at examples of labor in production. So the type of labor we're going to look at is unskilled labor, farm workers, cleaners, semi-skilled laborers, machine operators, drivers, skilled labor, electricians, plumbers, professional labor, doctor, teachers, lawyers, etc., etc., and the list goes on and on. These are just a few examples of labor. People who uses their skill, talent, energy, abilities in making production efficient. All right. Now we're going to look at capital as a factor of production, and we're going to talk about defining capital, characteristics of capital, types of capital, accumulation of capital, importance as a substitute for labor. So as we said before, capital refers to all man-made goods used in the production of other goods and services, including tools, machines, building, equipment, etc. Capital is not the same as money alone. I did say that in the earlier part of the video. Capital is not the same as money alone. It is the productive use of man-made resources. Now, characteristics of capital include, unlike land and labor, capital is created by humans. It is not directly consumed, but helps in production. It can depreciate, so it can wear out or become outdated over time. So if you have a tractor, after time it can become depreciated. All right. Requires investment, so capital must be created through savings and investment. Machines, tools, and funds can be transferred between businesses or industry. Now we're going to look at the types of capital. So we have fixed capital, which are long-term assets used over time in production, example buildings, machines, and vehicles. Working capital, which are short-term day-to-day inputs in production, example raw materials, fuel, inventory. We have social capital, which are infrastructure provided by the government. These includes roads, bridges, schools. Another type of capital is human capital, which are the skills and education acquired by workers. Example, trained workforce professional skills. All right, what do we mean by accumulation of capital? This refers to building up capital stock over time, whether you're going to save it, meaning you're going to set aside income, which you're not going to spend, or you're going to invest it using meaning that you're going to use your savings to purchase productive assets, or it could mean more capital, meaning more tools and equipment, which would result in higher production and economic growth. So those are the ways or you can accumulate capital. Importance of capital: increases productivity and efficiency, helps in mass production and reduces unit cost, boosts innovation and growth, and it allows for specialization and division of labor. Now let us look at capital as a substitute for labor and its importance. Capital can sometimes replace human effort, especially when machines perform repetitive or dangerous tasks. Do you hear them talking about introducing um, robots in schools, in banks, in the supermarkets to replace human labor? This is what we're talking about. Capital as a substitute for labor. So if they replace the machines with robots, what will happen to the human labor? We won't need people to work anymore because you can train the machines. So machines can perform repetitive or dangerous tasks if you train them. So there's no need for labor. Capital can sometimes replace human effort, especially when technology increases speed and precision. Example, a sewing machine reduces the need for hand stitching. Automated teller machines reduce the need for bank tellers. Tractors reduce the need for a large group of farm workers. So instead of having farm workers harvesting apples, thousands or hundreds of farm workers of harvesting apples, you could have a tractor or a machine to do that, right? However, capital cannot completely replace labor, and I agree. Capital cannot completely replace labor. Human oversight and creativity are still needed. So it doesn't matter the robots that they're introducing to replace um, labor or humans. Capital cannot completely replace us. All right. Examples of Hi guys, let's not look at the examples. Let's go to entrepreneurial talent as another factor of production. And we're going to look at public and private enterprises, definition, importance, functions. All right, let's look. Now, entrepreneurial talent refers to the human ability to organize and manage the other factors of production. And what are the other factors of production apart from entrepreneurship? We have land, labor, and capital. So entrepreneurial talent refers to the human ability to organize and manage the other factors of production to produce goods and services, often while taking financial risk in pursuit of profit. So the entrepreneur is the decision maker, the innovator, the risk taker in any business or economic activity. Now, what are the characteristics of an entrepreneur? Takes initiative to start a business or project, bear the risk of starting a business because you know that success is not guaranteed. The entrepreneur makes decisions about what, how, and where to produce. The entrepreneur seeks profit as a reward for effort and risk, and the entrepreneur shows creativity and innovation. Now, what are the importance of entrepreneurial talent? All right, so one, it combines resources efficiently. Two, it drives economic growth by starting and expanding businesses. Three, encourages innovation and use of technology. Another importance of entrepreneurial talent is that it provides employment opportunities and enhance productivity and competitiveness. Now, what are the functions of the entrepreneur? One, organizing, meaning bringing land, labor, and capital together to run a production or to run a business. Two, decision making. This means that the entrepreneur chooses what goods, service to produce and how. Another function of the entrepreneur is risk bearing. That means he invests money and effort despite uncertainty. Another function of the entrepreneur is innovating, introducing new ideas, products, or production methods. And finally, managing means overseeing daily operation and coordinate business activities. Now let us look at entrepreneurial talent instead of public and private enterprises. Now, private enterprise means that it's owned and managed by individuals or companies. The main aim of a private enterprise is to make profit. Example, supermarkets, hair salons, tech companies. So entrepreneurial talent in private enterprise takes full risk and rewards. Public enterprise, owned and operated by the government, the aim is to provide public service, not necessarily profit. Example, Water Authority, National Airline, and Postal Services. Entrepreneurial talent in public enterprise may focus on national development, job creation, or providing essential services. All right, guys, so that's it on entrepreneurial talent. If you need more information, you can do a little research on your own. But if you're asked about to describe the factors of production, these are the topics that you should talk about. If you're writing an essay, you're going to talk about the definition, the importance, the functions, and all the other parts that we have spoken about earlier in the video. Now we're going to look at fixed, variable, total, average, and marginal costs. So the objective says, go to our objective, it says identify the cost associated with production. Identify the cost associated with production. And if you're answering this question, you are to talk about fixed, variable, total, average, and marginal cost. All right, so let's go. Now, the cost of productions refer to the expenses a firm takes on to produce goods or services. These costs are typically grouped into several categories. As the syllabus says, fixed costs, variable costs, total costs, average costs, and marginal costs. Now we're going to look at each one of them. What do we mean by fixed cost? Well, these are costs that do not change with the level of output. These costs must be paid even if nothing is produced. Example of fixed costs, rent for factory space. So whether you are making a profit or not, rent you will have to pay. That's a fixed cost. Insurance is a fixed cost. So whether you're making a profit or not in your business, you still have to pay your insurance. Salaries of staff is a fixed cost. Whether you are making money in the business or not, you have to pay your salaries and you have to repay your loans. Example, a bakery pays $1,000 per month in rent. Whether it produces 10 or 1,000 loaves of bread, you still have to pay that $1,000 for rent. Variable cost, these are costs that vary directly with the level of production. So the more you produce, the higher the variable cost. Example, raw materials, flour, sugar. You plan to produce more bread, you're going to need more raw material. You're going to need more flour. You're going to need more sugar. Wages for hourly workers, because they will have to work long hours now, so because there's increase in production. Electricity and fuel for production. So a bakery uses more flour and pays more in wages if he bakes more bread. Total costs. This is a sum of fixed and variable costs at any level of output. If fixed cost is $1,000, so you have to pay $1,000 for the rent, electricity, your loan repayment, and the variable cost is $500, then the total cost would be what? $1,500. All right. Average cost, the cost per unit of output. So if you have 100 units are produced at a total cost of $1,000, the average cost would be 1,000 divided by the 100, so it would be $10 per unit. Marginal cost, the additional cost of producing one more unit of output. So if you're producing 50 units, costs $500, and you end up producing 51 units, it will cost you $510, meaning that the marginal cost would be 510 minus 500, it would be an extra $10 that you'll have to put into production. All right. Now we're going to look at the differences between short run and long run. Short run in economics is a period in which at least one factor of production is fixed, usually capital, such as buildings or machines, while other inputs like labor or raw materials can be varied. Firms cannot change their factory size. You cannot change the size of land, or nor can you change the size of a heavy machinery. Now, focus is on adjusting output using variables input like labor and materials. Example of short run would be a bakery hires more workers but cannot expand its kitchen immediately. A factory increases production but running extra shifts but can't or cannot build a new wing in the short run. Long run. The long run is a period in which all factors of production are variable. Firms have enough time to change anything, including factory size, machine technology, and number of workers. So firm can enter or leave the industry. There is full flexibility to scale up or down. Example, the bakery builds a second branch in another town. A car manufacturer installs new machine and expands the factory. So comparison, if we should compare the two terms, short run and long run, and we're going to look at time frame. So short run, limited, you have limited time. Long run, we have extended time, years. Short run, some inputs such as fixed, example capital, all inputs can change. Short run, firms cannot enter or exit the market easily. Long run, firms can enter or exit the market. Short run, hiring temporal workers during Christmas rush. Long run, opening a new store in a different city. All right, so in summary, short run is about quick adjustment with existing resources. Long run is about strategic changes, and full flexibility. All right. Now we're going to define goods, tangible, and services, intangible. When we talk about goods, Goods are physical, tangible items that can be touched, seen, stored, and owned. Characteristics of goods can be stored and inventored. Ownership is transferred upon purchase, can be returned or resold. Example of goods: bread, cell phones, furniture, clothing, socks, table, chair. These are all goods that you can see. They're physical, they're tangible, you can touch them, you can own them, you can store them. If you buy a cell phone and you decide that you no longer want it, it can be returned. You can resold it. All right, so those are goods. You can touch, see, and take home a goods. Now, when we talk about service, it's intangible. Services are intangible activities or tasks performed by someone to satisfy a need or want. They cannot be touched or seen. Example, haircut, teaching, medical treatment, transportation, banking. Those are all examples of services. You cannot see them, you cannot touch them, but you experience or benefit from a service, but you don't take it home physically. All right, let's go down to resource allocation, what to produce, how much to produce, and for whom to produce. Let's go up to the specific objective to see what is the objective for this. We are at, what number are we? Explain the concept of resource allocation. So in explaining your answer, you are to look at what to produce, how much to produce, and for whom to produce. Now, resource allocation is the process of deciding how to use limited resources, such as land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, to produce goods and services in a way that best satisfy the needs and wants of society. Now, since resources are scarce or limited, every society must answer three basic economic questions: what to produce. This asked, which goods and services should the economy produce? Societies must choose between necessities like food and healthcare and luxuries like video games or designing clothes or designer clothes. For example, let's say a country may choose to produce more rice and less sugar to meet food security needs. Resources answer the question of how much to produce. In what quantity should each goods or service be produced? So producing too much may lead to waste, while producing too little may cause shortages. So a government may decide to produce 10,000 school textbooks this year based on student enrollment. For whom to produce? This asks who will receive the goods and services produced. The answer depends on income, social policy, or government decisions. Example, public hospitals offer free health care to low-income citizens, while private hospitals serve those who can pay. So in summary, resource allocation, you have to answer three questions: what to produce, how much to produce, and for whom to produce. What to produce, choose between types of goods and services. How much to produce, decide on the quantity to avoid waste or shortage. For whom to produce, you have to determine who gets access. All right. Why is resource allocation important? It helps to avoid waste of resources. It ensures fair distribution of goods, affects economic growth and development, and it responds to changing needs of the population. All right, guys, so if you get a question on resource allocation, it answers three questions: what to produce, how much to produce, and for whom to produce. Now we're going to look at the types of economic systems: traditional, command or planned, free or capitalist, and mixed economic system. Guys, take a break, get your drink, get a bottle of water. If you wish to, let the ads just run on the video. Then when you are ready to return to studying from your syllabus, you can do so. Guys, please remember to like, leave a comment, and share this video with a friend who you think will need it to pass their economics examination. The first type of economic system that we are going to look at is the traditional economic system. And if you're going to write about traditional economic systems, you have to look at the examples, bartering and subsistence farming. Now, a traditional economic system is based on customs, traditions, and beliefs. Economic decisions are made based on long-standing practices, and there is little to no use of modern technology or currency. Example of traditional economic system would be subsistence farming. And in subsistence farming, most people engage in farming, hunting, or fishing to meet their basic needs. The goal is not to make profit, but to survive. There is little surplus, and what is produced is usually consumed by the family or local community. Example would be a family in a rural village growing cassava and raising chickens to feed themselves. The bartering system is the exchange of goods or services without using money. And this is an example of a traditional economic system. It requires a double coincidence of wants, meaning that each party must want what the other is offering. Example, a farmer exchanges yams for fish with a fisherman. Now, features of a traditional economy, it's based on subsistence and barter. We did say that. It's guided by customs and tradition, little or no use of modern technology, limited growth or economic development, and there's a strong sense of community and shared roles. All right. Now we're going to look at the command or planned economic system. A command economic system or a planned, another name, socialist economic system, is one in which the government or central authority makes all economic decisions. This includes what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. In this system, most resources are owned and controlled by the state, not by individuals or private businesses. Now, the main characteristics of a command or planned economic system is that the government owns the resources. The land, the factories, the capital are all owned by the government. There's a central planning agency, which is a government agency that creates plans that dictate production targets. The government decides on the prices of goods and services. The government decides what wages and salaries to be paid and how resources are allocated. Another main characteristics of a command or planned economic system is that the focus is on meeting social needs rather than making profit. The government decides which goods and services are available, so consumers have fewer options. The aim is to reduce inequality by ensuring that everyone has access to work, housing, education, and healthcare. All right, examples of command or planned economic system. Let's look at Cuba, especially from the 1960s onward. The state planned all production and provided free healthcare and education. Let's look at North Korea. The government continues to control almost every aspect of economic life. China, we can talk about China also. Before economic reform in 1978, China had a centrally planned system. The government um, was responsible for production. Advantages of a command or planned economic system. It ensures that basic needs like healthcare and education are met for everyone. may reduce income inequality, and can quickly mobilize resources during a crisis, example war or natural disaster. Disadvantage of a command or planned economic system: inefficiency, lack of competition can lead to waste and poor quality goods, shortages of surpluses, planners may miscalculate what people need, and consumers and businesses have little or no say in economic choices. Now we're going to look at the free or capitalist market economic system. A free market system, also known as a capitalist economic system, is a system in which economic decisions are made by individuals and businesses, not the government. Resources are privately owned. Production and prices are determined by supply and demand in the market. The profit motive drives innovation, production, and competition. So the key features of a free or capitalist economic systems are: individuals and business own land, factories, tools, and other resources. Consumers have the freedom to choose what to buy, which influences what is produced. Businesses are driven by the desire to earn profits. Multiple businesses compete to offer the best products and services, which benefits consumers. So it's the opposite of the command or planned economic system. Examples of a free market or capitalist economic system: United States. Although it has government regulation, the economy is largely driven by private enterprise. Singapore, known for low taxes and ease of doing businesses. Let me think of one more. Hong Kong historically operated with very low levels of government interference. So in reality, most modern free market countries are actually mixed economics today, meaning that they are both privately and government owned. All right, so that brings us to mixed public and private economic system. Another economic system is the mixed public and private economic system. So a mixed economy is an economic system that combines elements of both the free market and the command economy. In this system, both the government and private individuals play important role in the production and distribution of goods and services. The private sector produces goods and services for profit. The public sector, which is a government, provides essential services and regulate the economy to protect public welfare. So the key features of a mixed economic system are: both private businesses and government-owned enterprises operate in the economy. The government sets laws and policies to protect consumers, workers, and the environment. The government provides essential services like education, healthcare, roads, and national security. Individuals can own property and businesses, but certain industries must be regulated or nationalized. Governments may provide social services and financial assistance to support low income or vulnerable groups. Examples of mixed economic system in the Caribbean would be Barbados. For example, in Barbados, we have the public sector where the government provides free health care and education, owns the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and government school. For the private sector in Barbados, this includes tourism, banking, retail, and international business services. In Jamaica, we have the government providing infrastructure, public schools, and national security, and we have private sectors that are very much dominant in tourism, agriculture, entertainment, and retail industries. And there are other Caribbean countries that you could look at, and their mixed economic system. Now we're going to look at characteristics of each economic system in relation to ownership of the factors of production, role of government, and role of the private sector, how each economic system allocates resources. So I guess this objective is just asking us to do what we did before in number 11. So we're just going to do a quick summary. So as we said before, in the traditional economic system, there's no formal market system. Resources are used based on customs and passed down methods, often relies on barter and subsistence farming. Command economic, the government controls what, how, and for whom to produce, little consumer choice or competition, and the government tries to ensure equality but may lead to inefficiency and shortages. In the market economy, it's driven by consumers and businesses. Prices and production determined by supply and demand encourages innovation, competition, and profit making. For the mixed economy, it's the government and private sector both contributing to the economy, tries to balance freedom with fairness. Most modern countries, including those in the Caribbean, uses this system. All right, so we're going to go to the merits and demerits of each economic systems in terms of its efficiency in allocating scarce resources and in providing goods and services to each sector of the population. Now, merits and demerits of each economic system focuses on their efficiency in allocating scarce resources and providing goods and services to different segments of the populations. Now, examples are, let's look at the traditional economic system. What would be the merits? And when we talk about merits, we are looking at advantages. I should have said that earlier. So we're looking at advantages and disadvantages. So if you see merits on your exam paper, those are the advantages. If you see demerits, those are the disadvantages. So let's just start with the traditional economic system. The merits are simple system that is based on the needs and customs. Another advantage of the traditional economic system is that little waste or overuse of resources. Another merit or advantage is that there are strong community ties and operation. Demerit of the traditional economic system, limited innovation and growth. It's unable to meet modern needs, and there are poor use of human potential. When it comes on to the command economy, merits would be government ensures the basic needs are met for all citizens, can quickly mobilize resources, and there are less inequality in wealth distribution. Demerits often inefficient because there's no competition, low quality goods and shortages, little freedom of choice. In a market economy, merits includes efficient allocation of resources through supply and demand, innovation and productivity are encouraged, and there are wide consumer choices. The demerits would be inequality in income and access, market failures. When it comes on to mixed economy, the merits are combined strength of market and command system, provides public goods and services, reduces inequality through welfare programs. The demerit would be risk of over-regulation or bureaucracy, high taxes to fund public services, and possible conflict between the sectors. All right. So now we're going to look at the types of business organizations in a free market. Now, in a free market economy, there are various types of business organizations, mainly owned and operated by private individuals or groups. These organizations differ in size, ownership, structure, control, and liability. Now we're going to look at the main types of business organization in a free market. These include the sole trader. Now, a business owned and operated by one individual who assumes all risk and enjoys all the profit. So the first type of business organization in a free market is a sole trader. Now, characteristics of a sole trader are simple to start and operate, owner, has full control, unlimited liability, meaning personal assets are at risk. Let's look at an example of a sole trader um, organization in a free market. A barbershop or small grocery store that is run by one person would be an example of a sole trader business in a free market, because when you think about it, a barbershop is quite simple to start comparing to other large businesses. The owner of the barbershop has full control, and personal assets are definitely at risk. Another type of business organization in a free market economy system is partnership. Now, a business owned by two or more people who share profits, losses, and responsibilities. Now, characteristics of partnership would include shared decision making, partners contribute capital and skills, unlimited liability. Example would be a law firm. You could have two lawyers or two attorneys coming together, deciding to start a law firm. That would be an example of partnership business organization in a free market, or accounting firm. Now, let's look at private limited company. That's another type of business organization in a free market. It means that a business is owned by private shareholders with shares not available to the public. So characteristics of a private limited company as a type of business organization in a free market would include limited liability. So the owner's personal assets are protected. There are separate legal entity, and a private limited company requires registration and formal structure. Example of a private limited company. So an example of a private limited company would be Grace Kennedy in Jamaica. There are others in the other Caribbean countries, but I'm looking at Grace Kennedy in Jamaica. All right, so that's a local construction or tech company registered, would also as an LTD, would also be an example of a private limited company. Another type of business organization in a free market is public limited company. So a public limited company is a company that offers its shares to the general public via stock market. Characteristic of a public limited company PLC: large capital base, owned by many shareholders, managed by a board of directors, limited liability. Example, there's a company in Trinidad called Massey Holding. That would be an example of a public limited company. And the most popular ones that we know about, Apple, Amazon, those will be examples of public limited company. All right, now we're going to look at concept of economics of scale. Concept of economy of scale. Now, economics of scale refers to the cost advantages that a business experiences as it increases production. As output rises, the average cost per unit of production decreases. So, economics of scale, in simple words, occurs when a firm's cost per unit of output falls as the scale of its operations increases. Now, there are types of economics of scale. They are technical economics of scale, which is cost savings gained by using more advanced machinery, production techniques, or technologies as output increases. Example of technical economics of scale would be a large bakery buys an industrial oven that bakes 1,000 loaves of bread at once instead of 100. So this reduces labor and energy costs per loaf. So you could see in this bakery, they're using more advanced machinery and they have improved their production techniques. So they are also introduced technology, because the industrial oven would be an example of technology. And thus their output have increased because they're now producing more bread. Another example of economics of sale would be marketing economics of sale. Large firms can spread advertising and promotional costs over a larger output, reducing the cost per unit sold. Example of a marketing economic of sale would be Coca-Cola runs a 1 million global ad campaign. Whether it sells 1 million or 10 million bottles, the cost per bottle goes down as sales increases. So Coca-Cola uses advertisement and promotional costs over a large output, which helps to reduce the cost per unit sold. Another example of economic of sales is financial economic of sales. So this is where a large business have better access to credit and can borrow at a lower interest rate because lenders see them as less risky. Example, a small shop may get a business loan at 12% interest, but a large supermarket chain like Massy Store in Trinidad may get it at 6%, saving on financial costs. Another example of economics of sale is risk-bearing economies of sale, and this is where larger firms can diversify their operations, spreading risk across different products or markets. Example of risk-bearing economic of sale would be, say you have a company that makes soap, shampoo, food, and they also sell cleaning products. If sales of one product fall, the others can support the business financially. So that would be risk-bearing economics of sale. Now we're going to explain the concept of diseconomies of sale. Now, guys, please remember, just take a break. Remember to like, share, and comment on this video. Also, share it with a friend. And guys, please remember to subscribe if you are new to my channel and watch the ads on the video to support this small channel. All right, guys. Now we're going to look at this economics of sale. Now, this occurs when a business grows too large and instead of lowering costs, it begins to experience higher average cost per unit. This happens when expansion leads to inefficiencies. So in simple words, this economics of sale are the increase in unit costs that arise when a firm becomes too large and difficult to manage efficiently. Now, there are different types of this economics of sale. And even though the syllabus did not ask us to look at the types, I'm just going to mention two. You could have communication, this economics of scale, meaning that information may be misunderstood or lost as it passed through multiple departments. So example, a multinational company may struggle to coordinate operations across different time zones and languages, leading to delay and confusion. All right, so let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of division of labor. So that's advantages and disadvantages of division of labor. Now, division of labor is the process of breaking down production into smaller tasks, with each worker or group specializing in one part of the process. Now, what are the advantages of division of labor? One, increase efficiency and productivity. So workers become skilled and faster at one task. Example, in a bakery, one person only mixes dough, another bakes, another packages, leading to more bread made in less time because they don't have one individual doing 3 or 4 tasks at the same time. So we divide the labor among different people. Another advantages of division of labor is time saving. No time is lost switching between tasks. Example, a worker doesn't need to stop baking to start packaging, because you have a worker who is packaging and a worker who is baking. So that's time saving. Another advantage is better use of talent. Workers can focus on tasks they are best suited for. So a person who is good at decorating cakes only decorate cakes. A person who is good at decorating events or the location only focuses on decorating the location. Another advantage of division of labor is that it lower costs of production. So efficiency reduces labor costs per unit. So in a factory, if 10 workers are producing 100 units in a day, it's cheaper than 5 workers doing everything, definitely. All right. Now we're going to look at the disadvantages of division of labor. One, repeating boredom. So repeating the same task can make work boring. Example, for a factory worker placing labels all day may be bored and feel unmotivated. Another disadvantage of division of labor is lack of flexibility. Now, workers only know one part of the business, so if one person is absent, the work may slow down because workers only focus on what they are good at. So if you're good at baking, you only do baking. You're not allowed to package. You're not allowed to mix the dough. You're just only focusing on baking. So this lack of flexibility may slow down work. If one worker is missing, there's no one to fill that position until that worker returns. Another disadvantage of division of labor, overdependence. So one breakdown in the chain affects the whole system. So if the discs, as I was saying, example, so if the dough mixer fails, no bread can get baked or packaged, because mixing the dough is the first process in making the bread. So if something is wrong with that worker, or they made a mistake, or they put too much ingredients in the dough, whatever may happen, because of overdependence, the entire system will fail. So no bread will be baked or packaged. Another disadvantage of division of labor is reduced innovation. So repetitive work discourages creative thinking. A worker might not get a chance to suggest improvements. All right, and we're going to stop right there for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Guys, please remember to like, share, and leave a comment. If you want part 2 of this video, leave a comment and let me know. Miss, do part 2. Let me see the comments, guys. So if I get 30 students saying, Miss, part 2, you will be getting part 2 of this video. All right, guys, see you in another video.